I'm connecting. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
So nice to see you.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this.
My pleasure. It's nice to have some
So-
company.
Yeah, it's so cool actually. Why hadn't we done this before COVID-19?
I know. Suddenly, you know, we're all equals really with regards to distance now.
That's right.
Which we notice here because, you know, family, friends, you know, it's a lot more democratic who you spend time with now.
Yeah. How's it going up there?
Well, it's good. I mean, the Northern Territory doesn't have any community-acquired COVID,
Yep.
which is great, and I
Okay.
think we were very lucky.
Yeah.
You know, however, yeah, I mean, the Northern Territory has a lot of poverty, and so the consequences, if it gets in, is you know, are really significant. So,
Yeah.
but you know, the borders are effectively closed. I don't think Alice Springs has any active COVID cases, so you know, we're in a fortunate but tenuous position.
Yeah.
Yeah. How's
Cool.
Newcastle? How's
Newcastle? I think there's like 4 community cases, so not that many. And I don't know, like the other morning, like I've got a kid who doesn't sleep, so like 5 something we're walking to the beach, and it's like everyone is out running, swimming, like just it's a scene of health.
Yeah, I know. I don't think we've ever been as fit as we are now. Like, I don't necessarily include myself in that, but I'm seeing a lot of other people exercising.
Yeah.
Hi.
Just joining us. Just let it back. Howdy.
How are you?
Yeah, so good. So good to see you.
Yeah.
So, your studio, I mean, we've been just wanting to get there, but obviously we haven't made it to Alice Springs yet. So we get to see it via this tiny screen.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
What are you working on?
We can do a tour. I'm just sort of
please.
I'm sitting here at the moment, I'm just setting up to welt a pair of boots, which is one of the primary soling kind of stitches. So I'm set up here with like the things that I need for this bit of the process.
Yeah.
My bucket of water.
Yeah.
And I'm working on my lap, which is, you know, where a traditional shoemaker has their work. And so this is the boot as it's been lasted. So that all the nails there are pulled out one by one as I progress.
Yeah.
And I'm working on this stitch here, which is done with a heavy linen, very heavily waxed thread that I roll myself.
Wow. When we sew, sometimes we like hold this, like a stitch that holds the cloth together before you finish.
No,
the
well,
staples?
These nails, I guess, would probably be that because there's no glue holding this. And so what I'll do is this is a strap that goes down around my foot. So I've got this like anchor that I can really maintain pressure with. And so it does 2 things. It holds the welt here, which is what I'm stitching to the boot, but it also steadies the work in my lap. Yeah. And this thing that it's on is like, this is sort of my innovation. Other people do use them, but because traditional shoemaking is done right down in your lap, as you can imagine, it's like ergonomically terrible.
Yeah.
And my back had a couple of careers before shoemaking, so it doesn't really like to be bent over for a long period. So it means I can keep my torso nice and straight, but
awesome.
It's like I've brought my lap up by, you know, the better part of a foot. So it also makes it easier to see.
That's great.
And so yeah, as I go, this strap will be moved to allow get to the next stitch. It's also holding the welt, and then the needles. I'll just pull this one out. I don't know if you can see, but hang on. These are made from fishing line.
Yeah.
Traditionally, they were like a boar bristle, so like a European wild hog. And they're flexible. And so what it means is, as I come along, this is a bit, I can't do camera and with
Yeah,
my
that's
awl,
cool.
my curved awl.
Oh,
Um,
so it goes in.
yeah, I can't quite
That's
do this
cool.
with one hand. But then
Yeah.
basically what will happen is as the awl comes out, the curved needle will follow it back through the hole. And the two
Yeah.
needles, which are flexible, can then sort of accommodate each other and the curve through the, oh, I mean, we could go on and on, but yeah.
Yeah, so basically the way you're stitching it has like you're kind of having to juggle two tools in a way.
Yeah, and once you're up and running, which I'm certainly not at this point, the needles you never put down and the awl stays in your hands. So you're sort of, you've got a bit to kind of coordinate plus the strap. You know, you'll also I'll pick up my, you know, these are my lasting pincers to actually then remove the next nail. So I might just put the awl down momentarily and then it's a, you know, it's a bit of beeswax before each awl pass that also, you know, helps the thread in the hole.
Wow.
But what I like, I mean, what I find interesting is that the way that the thread is attached to the bristle.
It really is.
It's
right at the
tapered.
end. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've rolled this thread from like 6 strands of linen.
Wow.
And so you can taper where each strand finishes.
Yeah.
So that you don't really have your full thickness thread until really I'm right back here somewhere.
Yeah.
Which makes it easy for the two needles and the beginning of the threads to pass in the hole.
Yeah.
And then once you've got the main thickness of both the threads in the hole, they're really locking. And this is actually a white thread that's waxed heavily with almost like a tar.
Yeah.
And so it really bites. You need a lot of friction to actually get the thread running in the hole.
Yeah.
And then once they're in there, they lock and they really plug the hole. So what it means is that, you know,
that's fantastic.
Yeah, they don't move. And
is that a very traditional way of making that needle and thread work, or is that sort of half innovated and half traditional?
Yeah, no, it's basically how shoes were made, you know, in a European tradition, you know, before the Industrial Revolution. So that you go back to the 1600s, there was like different methods again. But I think from sort of the 1700s through to the sort of the early part of the 20th century, it was kind of like the benchmark for, you know, for making a shoe.
The technology of the time.
That was the technology of the time. And really, you know, what this enables is that you can come back. So this welt is like if you look down on my shoes or my boots, the welt is the top part here, that you can see that's kind of got stitching in it. And that's what's stitched to the outsole of the boots. And so when you can basically access this, you know, a lot of times to replace the outsole, which is below it, without having to disturb the integrity of the shoes. So even though it's an old method, it makes a pair of shoes repairable.
That's right. Yeah, so that's what we understand too. If you see that stitching, you know that it can be resold traditionally. Yeah.
And that's an incredible longevity because you can literally then resell that for years and years and years and decades even.
Yeah, that's right. You can. And and I mean, you know, sometimes the welt itself will need to be replaced, which is that's slightly more major surgery, but it's that's the.
So how long would the shoes that you're working on, how long does it take to complete?
In terms of hand hours in a final pair, it's, you know, it's around 40 hours a pair.
Yeah.
And I'm at a stage in my career where I'm competent in all the parts of the process. But I'm not really proficient in all of them that it's necessarily, you know, super speedy. I mean, shoemaking, as I practice it, was really 6 trades,
Yes.
back in the day. So there's kind of lots of distinct phases to kind of, to get around. And so here, these are actually just fitting boots and trial shoes. So these are just, I guess in your world, you would call this, is it a draft?
Trials
Yeah.
and samples.
Okay. Yeah, and then so client lasts, and so these have been, modified, and so, from these fitting boots, I'll make adjustments to the last and to the patterns, before kind of moving on to actually making, making a final pair of boots, which is where, the 40 plus hours comes in. So it's hard to overstate, how long it can take.
Yeah, that's right.
So do you
And that's just making it. Like
Yeah.
that doesn't come into the leather being tanned and all the processes
and making
that
your
go
linen,
into...
thread, it's insane.
Yeah. So, but that's sort of what's great about it as well.
Yeah, that's right.
And
Not many people can say that they have a pair of shoes made specifically for their feet,
Yeah, that's right. And there's handmade shoes. There's handmade shoes. There's sort of a whole spectrum of how you can choose to make them. And I've just sort of drifted further and further down the end of, using more traditional methods, which is more time consuming.
Yeah.
And I don't really think, I could make a pair of shoes in a day, but it would become a highly repetitive process, and some of the integrity of the product would be lost.
Yeah.
What I like about shoemaking is that it's so personal. When you do bespoke work, you're really working to someone's foot.
Yeah.
And you must see some pretty interesting feet too.
Yeah.
Because everyone's got like differences that like a standard shoe that you would buy just wouldn't work for.
Yeah, that's right. And most people will fit a shoe that, if they're, in a shop, to their most extreme measurement. So that might be the length of their foot or the width, or they might have some, medical issue with their foot. And that's kind of what they accommodate. And so, if you've got a wide foot or a long foot, people live with a lot of compromise in their shoes and how they wear over time as well.
So, you're based in Alice Springs. It's not like people can kind of walk in the door and get their order in directly. So how are you managing to essentially measure people's feet remotely in this way?
Well, up until COVID, I would do fittings in Sydney and Melbourne twice a year.
Yeah.
So
cool.
I could and that's really where most of my clients are.
Yeah.
So I could access people directly.
Yeah.
And that would also be an opportunity to visit, various suppliers, family as well, things like that. But I used to make a lot more shoes, and I used to do a lot of fittings by Skype back in the day when Skype was a big thing.
Now it's Zoom.
Zoom, it's FaceTime. And so at the moment, I've just gone back to that because I've got a whole year's work. It's a 12-month process from order to completion. So I've got a whole year's worth of work on my books, and most clients are choosing to proceed. It really just means it's more work on my behalf, really. I can mail out the fitting boots, get right in there with FaceTime. So it's often helpful if the client has a camera operator at the other end to kind of,
Help them.
otherwise it can be kind of awkward otherwise.
Yeah. Interesting.
That's so cool that it's possible with technology to customize people's shoes. That's incredible.
Yeah. To be honest, I'd be much happier doing it face to face, just because I can see and I can feel, and you can there is another level of information that you can kind of pick up. But it's also, you can do it remotely.
Do you feel like with all of this craziness with COVID, like what does the future look like? It's awesome that you have work lined up and customers are continuing on.
I mean, I think here we have a really heightened sense of vulnerability. The last couple of summers particularly, like, have hit home around climate change for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, in this last summer, obviously everyone in the country. So extreme heat is a thing. Like, we really feel like we're a frontline community. And it kind of, you know, Alice Springs is a place that materials end up. You know, we're dependent on supply chains that are global, that bring in all of our food. You know, there's very little that's actually produced here. And so, yeah, something like COVID is, you know, there's a lot of resourcefulness here in terms of people's attitude. You know, I think things have changed, but I mean, Alice Springs not that long ago was a really resilient, resourceful town. Socially it's still all those things. But yeah, so yeah, vulnerable, I think, to these shocks that come through.
And also, I think with your work, with your leather work, I mean, I see a very classic. You have a very classic approach to your work. But then, as a collaboration with Elliot, you guys really explore. I don't know if there's a real sense of, like, for me, like, what's home, like, or what's Australian, or the way that you're looking at resources. I think is really interesting because you're looking at what materials are available to you there. You know, and that is also a question for any of us to ask where we exist, you know. And so what your the playfulness and also what you explore together in terms of, like, whether it's like leather bag collaboration, leather works, or the furniture stuff that you kind of more more conceptual, I guess, kind of ideas is really interesting. And I see, like, but it's like quite different to your classic shoe design. Yeah. But then your shoe designs are so sturdy, like they look like they'll last several generations, you know. Maybe, you know, who knows? In the future, when there's nothing left, there'll be your shoes.
We'll open the time machine and there they will be. James B. Young.
Yeah. Maybe. We'll see. Well, yeah, I mean, thank you. That's all really kind and generous. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know where it's going to go. And I mean, I think the way that we work, and it is partly about being remote, is that we're essentially three businesses rolled into one. Yeah. Elliot's design practice, which is amazing, and varied in itself. Elbow Workshop, which is, as you said, where we collaborate and play. And that stuff cusps on art. You know, we do help produce artistic projects, and as well as products. And then there's the stuff that I do. And I mean, I think that part of what, you know, when I started, when we set up this workshop, which was, I think we're in our 7th year now. Wow. You know, people would tell you, oh, you'll try everything and then you'll work out what really sells, and then that's what you'll do. But in a way, we've kind of resisted that. And what we do is, you know, we've got lots of different revenue streams. I mean, shoemaking, you know, that's what dominates my time. It probably occupies a disproportionate place in terms of people's perception of me and what I do.
It looks beautiful, so it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, well, that's right. It's very photogenic.
That's right.
You know, and that's what drives my passion and my skill development, and a lot of my thinking about, I don't know, materials or whatever. But yeah, it also gives us this opportunity to switch between different streams and parts of the business. Some's more service-based, some is more product-based. There's things that we do, you know, just purely to satisfy our creativity. Yeah. So, I mean, that's that's kind of a part of it. It's sustainable, I think, like on a number of levels. So in terms of what COVID means, I have been trying to think about that, and I really can't actually grapple with it too much.
You're right. I think climate change is a much more predominant issue, or more real, you know. This will kind of pass, but the challenges is, like, for the future is a lot, you know, the reality of our weather changes and the way that we access materials, our supply chain, that's pretty big. Do you have any work that that you can show us between you and Elliot, like the elbow workshop pieces?
Yeah,
Do you have it there?
Yep, I can definitely.
Can you also give us a tour?
Oh
Yeah, let's do a
look,
workshop
look
tour.
at the view from behind you. It's amazing.
Yeah, we can look out the door as well. There's
Look at those last.
I just got to unbuckle myself here from my
Oh yeah, sorry.
Okay, sorry.
It's on your lap. You're all set up. That is so
It
cool.
reminds me of like manga illustrators, how they strap the pencil to their fingers.
Oh, do they?
You know? Yeah.
Right.
To draw
So
long
just
periods of time.
stays there.
Oh wow. Yeah, well, like I mean, there's a kind of a joke in shoemaking that like if you need to go to the loo, you don't get up. You know. Because- yeah, and you know, there's a lot of prep just to start this process. But it was like, oh, I looked at the clock and I thought, oh, cool, I'll do the first like 2 or 3 stitches, which is what I did. But once I come back to this, I'll just keep going, and I probably won't. I won't finish the other boot until it's dark. You know, it'll be a long thing. But anyway, oh, wrong way. So yeah, well, these are new. These are bags that we started last year.
Yeah.
And I guess they're kind of a bit of a conversation about supply chain. The canvas that we're using is a heavy duty Australian loomed artist canvas.
Yeah.
Because through the wall through here, if you could look through the lasts in there, is Chapman and Bailey, who wholesale to the regional art centres.
Okay, cool.
And so they've got big rolls of canvas.
Awesome.
And so it's something that's already here. And part of our thinking is about, well, you know, what are common materials that we can use that are here already?
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily need to be fine materials because, you know, we live at the end of a very long supply chain. And so when I think about what's on the shelf at Bunnings, there's so much redundancy built into the volume of materials that flow through those places that you can actually take raw products that might be manufactured in China and actually treat them like they're a material off the roll. Because, I mean, I'm not saying that it's desirable, but there's so little embedded cost or value in, you know, the thing that you're buying on the shelf that for us as makers here in the middle of Australia, it's like, well, a manufactured object is often cheaper than a finished product, and a lot of it isn't going to have a life outside of Alice Springs if it doesn't get sold necessarily. And so
that's amazing. Yeah.
You know, but anyway, so these bags are actually made from like pet mesh fly screen, which did come off the roll at Bunnings.
I love that design actually.
Cool,
the one that you did, the screen door.
The screen door one.
Oh yeah, the screen door bags. Yeah, that's right. And then this is kind of like where the goop bag meets the screen door bag, and these are really fun. And they're called the goop bag because the edging on the bag that is kind of like a paint treatment on the handle, but is also the seals or the hems, is an architectural rubber membrane.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard wearing. We can colorize it. And so it's kind of fun. And so we call them goop bags because they've kind of got this rubbery texture.
That's brilliant.
So yeah, and then this is the dubbin, which is a camel product.
Yeah, that's right. The wax.
Yeah. So that's.
I think that your history with making camel saddles and the walk across Australia.
The two of you have had some seriously awesome adventures.
Elliot said it's a sketch bag, not a group bag.
Oh yeah, they're called sketch bags. That's my bad.
Thanks, Elliot.
Sorry. I call them goop bags. We call it goop.
Last one too.
Nice one.
Yeah, and then
so the dubbins. Sorry, we were just talking about the dubbins, and because you have done a lot of work making camel saddles.
Yes.
That's cool.
Yeah, and so Elliot and I did a camel trip when we were like 20, and so this the principal ingredient in the dubbin is actually camel hump fat, which is very pure. I mean, in Europe they use in the higher end leather products they actually use seal or mink fat, which is you know, kind of bit, you know, that's a bit weird, quite frankly.
But camel, on the other hand,
it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, you know, some of my best friends have been camels, but Australia has a feral camel problem. I don't know if many people watching realise, but
no.
you know, and so the camels that end up in the dubbin are harvested from Aboriginal land, from the Nungajarra lands, and they're processed in South Australia.
Wow.
So yeah, there's a kind of you know, there's a land management story that sits with it.
It's from here too, you know.
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. Wow, very cool.
Okay, continue on. Can you show us the rest of your workshop?
And outside.
Yeah. We can. So, you know, there's machinery. You know, this is a boot patcher machine. Here's this kind of my shoemaking tools, which tend to be reasonably old. A lot of these are kind of, you know, 150-year-old tools. These are edge irons, which you use for burnishing leather. You heat them on a spirit lamp.
Amazing.
Sort of traditional leather tools, punches. There's a whole sort of miscellanea down here of hardware and, you know, and stuff. This is one of my favorite things in the whole world, which is a set of drawers that a friend found on the street that probably from the 1930s, and
wow,
and it's still stocked. These are like enamel buttons, you know, like the old tin enamel covered buttons. And where's a good example? The drawers themselves are made from Greek soap boxes.
Oh my gosh, why would anyone throw that out?
Well, yeah, and you know, it's still stocked with some relatively modern components, but a lot of it is, you know, goes right back. And I just love the idea that it was still in use. You know, these are like the toe caps that go on the tips of shoes.
That's amazing.
And you know, this thing was in somebody's workshop until, you know, the day they retired or passed away, and I still go to it and get things out of it. I got something out of it a couple of days ago to use. So, you know, I mean, there's a lot of old gear here. Some of it is sort of, I mean, there's a machine over here that you can see is like that big kind of cast iron thing. It's too modern really for the process that I currently use, you know. A lot of this stuff is some of the early industrial
wrong generation
machinery that was, you know, it was really well suited to smaller or artisanal, you know. This is a heel nailer. So a boot can sit upside down on there, and there's pins that push nails up through each of these holes. So you can be nailing from inside the boot, you know, up into the heel seat. This is the dirty room, which is, you know, there's a fume extractor for the rare times that I use nasty glue. I actually generally don't. This stuff's, you know, that's non-toxic. It's a mess. This is a finishing machine, so it has various grinding and buffing wheels. It looks impressive, but it's kind of so old and wobbly that there's only actually these two wheels are the ones that ever get used. You know, we were shooting some new work yesterday, so this is the photo wall that, you know, scrolls down, and then I'll just pan quickly like that because it's so messy in there. This is our big kind of shared work table, which is concrete.
Oh, that's a stunner. Great.
And
it looks very productive.
It's totally good. Oh yes, the trusty old singer.
Yeah, trusty old singer. This is great. I mean, these are all leatherworking machines, so this is like a wheel feed. Yeah, this is like a 31K, which is quite a you know, the cowboy boot makers use these for the tops for doing all the fine sort of stitch work.
Okay.
So
Skiving machine. You know, some of this stuff, I mean, it's all in use, but, you know, it's sort of horses for courses. I don't use things like this all the time.
Yeah.
This is another sole stitching machine. You know, yeah, and so, you know, yeah, there's last everywhere. I've got a lot more lasts at home. You know, these post beds are a shoemaker's best friend because they let you get in around the work. You can stitch on curves.
Yeah.
So the post there is raised up. And this is good West German steel from the mid-50s.
Hey, we have a listener question. Katrina
Yeah.
would like to ask, when can we expect cowboy boots in your future?
Oh, in my future?
Is it possible?
I don't know, man. That's like making champagne outside of France, you know? I mean, there's a tradition here of boots that were made for the saddle. You know, and the cowboy boot came around really in about the 1930s. And so it kind of coincided with, I mean, I think it was like more of a Spanish tradition of boot that was used in South America. And then when at a certain point in time, it became this platform for kind of storytelling and flourish. And, you know, but the basic kind of physics of the boot is all about being in a saddle on a horse. The pointed toe helps you find the stirrup.
Yeah.
The Cuban heel is like, you know, helps you stay in the stirrup.
Yeah.
The toe stitching, you know, the boot tops, there's all kind of, it all sort of ties in with horse work, but then it's become this quite extravagant thing. And
yeah. I mean, it's a good-looking shoe, I guess. You know.
yeah.
But that's what's really cool. Like, I think what other thing I'm interested in asking you is the fact that you have gone, as you said, further into tradition rather than the manufacturing or fashioning. Or I mean, you have designed some really great shoes, like the ones with the holes, like amazing stuff. So you can do that. But I guess as a practitioner, as a craftsperson, you know, starting to work with these materials, I can see the appeal of becoming more and more specialized, or like knowing those features of creating something, having a deeper relationship with those processes, I guess.
It's really cool.
So what's interesting is that you're not really considering like taking your designs offshore, for example, and getting it manufactured, or you know, it's really still about you guys producing it with what you have there, you know, in your workshop.
Is that kind of the way you're sort of feeling about the way forward?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, you know, a lot of the challenges around manufacturing in Australia are only amplified by being somewhere remote. You know, I'm sure as you guys are kind of aware, like the sort of pressures that push the textiles and clothing industries offshore, you know, like shoemaking was one of the first parts of that, you know, suite of industries to go because it's labor intensive. There's a really high material cost, you know, and then the labor, you know, is kind of its own sort of set of specializations. And so I think it was one that kind of fell apart really quickly. And so to kind of, you know, think about scaling up in any way is kind of automatically coupled with simplifying something, the processes, reducing the material quality maybe. But then, you know, you've got this investment in training people, and then you need to kind of retain those skills. And so to be in Alice Springs, you know, it's just not really, it'd be a very high risk kind of strategy. You know, and then similarly, you know, it's all good when the going's good, but then suddenly if the market falls away or something changes, it's kind of like, well, then you've got this exposure where you're carrying these big overheads. And so yeah,
I think what I really like about what you said before is that you and Elliot have this kind of gig economy within your own skill set, you know, like your businesses combined and individually create this like multi-income stream, you know, cross collaboration, but also individual skills. And that, I think we've been talking a lot about that too. It's like, how do you create a livelihood, a living for your little family while being a creative maker, while not compromising on quality and longevity and not taking things offshore. And I think that view that you have of this kind of little mini gig economy within your own family structure or your own little businesses, it's really cool. It's a great way to look at it. I think that's kind of where we're heading
right
to.
back at you, because that's how I understand high tea.
All right. No, we're not that organized.
We're not quite.
Oh, come on. And I think another thing, like we've, you know, sought advice from people at different times, and you know, one direction that we like could choose to go in, but we've chosen not to, is to do like the big markets, which we kind of get it. It's like lucrative potentially, and connects you with, you know, people who might be in your audience. But I think part of being remote is our awareness of just how tiring that would be and how draining on the family. And, you know, I mean, definitely one of the challenges of having all those different revenue streams and product streams and kind of identities is that, you know, you're constantly switching around in your head to try and work out. Like some days I come into work and I'm just like not really sure, who am I today? You know,
different hat.
Am I Elbow Workshop? Am I James B. Young? And that, we just kind of feel like we like being able to keep it centered, you know, in that way. I mean, I do travel for fittings, but it's not that huge outlay of energy that I think must be required to kind of do those big markets. And
for us it is exhausting, and you're right, it's not just on us, it's on like the whole everyone that's connected to us. So it is.
I think the traveling thing, especially from Alice Springs, it would be just epic. Like you'd have to do a whole round trip like you guys would do, all the way around and back again, and do lots of
totally.
Yeah.
But and I mean, and look, and the other thing is that the way that things have ended up, we kind of at capacity at different times of the year with one part of the business or another. So, I mean, that's what kind of makes it work, is that, you know, when one thing's not progressing because it's, you know, and it might, I mean, the Elbow Workshop stuff is big around Christmas and things like Mother's Day and, you know, those kind of calendar date moments. But if it was busy all year round, we'd kind of have a problem as well, because we wouldn't be able to meet that demand.
It's like you've got like an inbuilt seasonality amongst all the different aspects of what you do, and that's lovely.
That is actually,
see and hear that.
Yeah, it's kind of fluid, and it's also like kind of acknowledging that and going, you know, that's fine. You know, it doesn't need to be Elbow Workshop busy like 12 months and have that expectation, you know. It gives you space to, I really appreciate that you're giving yourself some space to like design also, you know. And I think that's what makes your work so compelling. You know, the stuff that you do as a collaboration, and then what you do individually. Like they're three very different identities, but they have a dialogue with each other, which is really nice.
Yeah. And I mean, it's so much fun to work with the people that you like most in the world, as you know.
It sure is.
Sure is. So awesome to visit you guys via this technology, and catch up.
Thanks so much.
More regularly.
You know, it's always nice to there's a catharsis that comes with being able to talk about what you do, and you know, so yeah, it's nice. It's good. Nice to share.
So good. Thanks, James.
Big love to Elliot too.
Yeah, she says she's sort of homeschooling. Maybe
it's called craft.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Cool. That's great.
Cool. All right. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Bye.
Bye.